Hello friends, welcome back. In this video we are going to study jQuery selectors. In last video we saw jQuery introduction, and in that part I covered the basic features and advantage of jQuery, as well as we saw document.ready and window.load event, and we saw the difference between two also, as well as I told you about the jQuery function. If you are not aware of that part, please watch the video of jQuery introduction first. Now let us see what is jQuery selectors. So jQuery selectors enables you to find the DOM element in your web page. Okay, and most of the times you will start with a selector function which is specified by $, and after that you have to specify your selector expression. Now there are various methods to define your selector expression, and we are going to cover it shortly. Now let us see the syntaxes available for the selectors. Either you can use $ or jQuery. Basically $ and jQuery both are what? Both are function. $, is just an alias to your jQuery function, because generally $ is preferred because it is easy and fast to write. Okay, now let us see the available selectors in jQuery. So there are 5 types of selectors available. First one is universal, then element selector, ID selector, class selector, and last one is attribute selector. So let us see it one by one. So jQuery selectors finds your particular DOM element and wrap them with jQuery object. Okay, so this is very important. Once it wrap them with a jQuery object, you can use its functions, methods, properties, events, etc. etc. Now let us see the first selector, which is universal selector. So as the name suggests, it will select all the elements on your web page. Now how to define this selector? As usual, definitely we have to use a $ function or jQuery function. Then in bracket you will specify your expression. Okay, and you have to enclose it in single quote. Okay, and it is mentioned by asterisk sign. So asterisk itself means all the element. Okay, now next one is element selector. So element selector will allows you to select the element on web page by its tag name. Okay, means suppose here I define $ and p. So what it means? It will select all the elements of a paragraph tag. Okay, or whose tag is paragraph. So here also we enclose it in single quote. And remember one thing, whenever you are selecting particular element by tag name, you will never include angular bracket. Okay, you will just specify your tag name only. Now next one is ID selector. Suppose you want to you want to select a particular element only, and whenever defining in HTML we specify the ID attribute also. So suppose you want to select your element by ID, in that case ID selector is helpful, and for ID selector you have to specify your ID along which is preceded with a hash symbol. See, specify an ID of an element for which you want to get the reference starting with a hash symbol. Means before your ID or ID name you will specify the hash symbol. We are going to see this part practically also. Now next one is class selector. So this will allows you to select a particular element which has a specific class, and how it will be written? Again $ function, then you have to specify the dot for class selector. Remember this thing, and then after you have to specify the class name that you have applied to your HTML element. Now the next one is attribute selector. So it will allows you to select your element by its attribute. Okay, so here for example elements are selected based on its class attribute. Means it will select all those elements which has a class attribute. Now for that you have to use this square brackets. Remember this thing, you have to enclose your attribute name in square bracket. Okay, so suppose next is, suppose you want to select a particular element with a specific attribute and with a specific attribute value. Okay, in that case you have to follow this way. Okay, inside square bracket you will specify your attribute name which is assigned with its value and which is enclosed in a double quote. So it will return all the element which has a class my CLS value. I hope you understand this. Definitely we are going to see this part practically also. Now let us see a few examples. Here I specified some selectors and here is an example. Okay, so as I told you, this is universal selector. You will mention it in this way and it will select all the elements. Now look at here how ID selector is defined. With the help of hash, ID selector is defined. So here it will select an element which has ID last name. So remember one thing, whenever you are using ID selector, you definitely get a single element only. Okay, now for class selector we have to use dot. This is an example. It will select all the elements whose class is intro. Okay, next one is element selector. Here it will select all the elements of tag P or of paragraph tag. Here it will select all the elements with href attribute, and in next example it will select all the elements with href attributes and its value is equal to default.htm. Now these are some advanced selectors. Okay, so colon input, this will select all the input element. Okay, means all the HTML element whose tag is what? Input tag. Here it will select all the element of input tag but type is equal to what? Text box. Now as you studied jQuery, okay, or as you start working with jQuery, definitely you will find your own selectors also. Okay, well, I definitely try to explain all these selectors, but definitely there is a limitation because the scope of jQuery is very vast, and when we start working with jQuery, you may get some other type of selectors also. Okay, so we'll see this part practically. Now here I'm using the previous application. In our jQuery introduction video, we created a jQuery demo solution. Okay, and in that I told you how your jQuery file reference get added and everything. Okay, actually the reference of jQuery 1.10.2 JS is already there in your layout file, as you can see here. Okay, so whatever your script code, it should appear after this. It should appear after this. But again, if you are writing it in your content view, what approach you have to use? You will specify your code in a section. Okay, so we can render this section in our layout view below your scripting tag. I hope you got this. Otherwise, what you can do, you can specify the reference of this jQuery file above the render body call. Okay, because to use a jQuery functionality, we need a reference of this file, and the code, our code should appear below this line only. So my suggestion is to use the approach of section, because generally the references of scripts are added at the end of our body tag. Okay, so as we did in the last video, here I told you how to add a section and how to write a code. Now for the selectors, I already created one action method. As you can see here, selectors action method is already added, and I added a respective view also. And as you can see here, there are some HTML elements. Okay, and there is some data also. Okay, so let us try to fetch a data using jQuery selectors. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add a reference of a jQuery file in my content view. Okay, actually it is present in layout view, but still I'm going to add it here to get a advantage of IntelliSense. Okay, but in real project definitely you will avoid this. For practice purpose you can use this. So here I just drag and drop the file, and let us write our script. Now where to write a jQuery code? See, basically we are performing the jQuery DOM selection using jQuery, right? And you can select your element when DOM tree is created, and for that jQuery has given document.ready event. See, look at here, you are getting IntelliSense. Okay, it is showing you the parameter also. So document dot ready, and to that ready event you have to specify the code that you want to execute in the form of function. Remember this thing. So your code will appear between these curly brackets. Okay, now here first of all we will see universal selectors. Okay, so as I told you, for universal selector you have to use star selector expression. So star, so first of all our dollar function, and to that you have to provide your selector expression in a single quote. Say star. Now what this star does, or what this universal selector does, it returns or it gives all the elements available on my web page. So definitely there are more than one. Okay, as you can see here itself there are 3 to 4 head tags, one paragraph tag is there. Okay, even this script tag is there, it is also a part of your HTML web page. Okay, so it will return all the elements that is available on your page. Now suppose I want to print that elements. So for that I have to iterate through that elements. I have to go through that elements one by one, and for that jQuery has given each function. It exactly works like your for each loop in C#. Okay, but it is function here. Okay, and as you can see here, this each function itself accepts another function. This each function itself accepts another function. So either you can create that function separately and then specify that function name here, or you can create a function inside this each function. Okay, both the ways are feasible. So I am going to create a function inside the each function as we created in the ready function. Okay, so this particular concept is called as callback function in jQuery. Okay, if you are familiar with the delegates in C#, okay, it is used to pass a function as an argument to another function, right? In C# there is a concept of delegates, and here in jQuery here is the concept of callback function. If you pass one function as an argument to another function, then it will be called as delegate function. Oh, sorry, not delegate, callback function. Now let me explain one more thing. See, to our each function, if you determine the argument carefully, okay, its argument is definitely function, but it is accepting two argument also. One is index and one is element. Okay, index is nothing but a index number of your element. Okay, and element is element itself, means nothing but a tag of your HTML web page. So let us declare that, or define that variable, not declaration, because declaration concept is not there in JavaScript. Okay, now in IND variable, or whatever variable or whatever argument you define first, it will have an index value, and the second argument will be the element itself. Okay, now let us print the content of this element. Now to print this content of the element, I am going to use console.log function, which is of JavaScript. See, definitely you should be familiar with a JavaScript if you are using a jQuery, because jQuery is just a library. Basic syntaxes of JavaScripts are used while writing a code. Now here I am just going to display an index. So index is plus ind. For concatenation purpose I use plus, then again plus /n HTML is plus. Now to print a HTML of your element, there is HTML method itself, and again your content of your HTML, sorry, not the content of HTML, but your element itself will be available through this ELE argument. So how will you use this here? $ELE.html. Remember one thing, whenever you want to use any object, you have to use this dollar function. Okay, whether it is a selector expression or whether it is a single element in the form of argument, anything, you have to use it in this way only. So just you have to learn this thing. Once you got this, definitely jQuery is easy part. Now plus again /n. Suppose I want to print its text. Okay, definitely I'll differentiate between HTML and text also. So the element text, so again $ele dot text. Okay, now see, if you look at here, if you look at this paragraph tag, what is it? HTML. Paragraph tags HTML is this, means it includes underline tag also. And what is paragraph tag text? Paragraph tag text is only a plain text excluding your HTML. Okay, so I hope you got this. So what are each function does? It will iterate through each and every element, and while iterating through it, it will execute this code. Means this code is applicable to our each and every element on our web page. So let us run this. So the main important thing that you have to learn here is the concept of callback function, okay, and the jQuery function which is specified by $. Now let us check our console. So for that, right click over here and say inspect element, and then you will got this console tab. Just click over there. Look at here. See, everything get printed. Index is 32. Index is 31. HTML is this. Text is this. Now you may think that we just have this much HTML on our view, and how this get printed. Basically this view has a layout view, and all the things that you are seeing here, okay, all are part of our layout view. So look at here, selectors, it's fun learning jQuery, everything get printed. Okay, now what we will do, we will use the other selectors also, so we can differentiate between our data. Okay, so let us see the next selector, which is say element selector. So first of all we saw universal selector. This is what? Universal selector. Now let me comment this part so our output will be clean. Let us see element selector. So element selector is used to select any element by tag. So suppose I want to select the element h3, all the elements h3. So how will you mention it? In double quote you have to just specify the h3. So again you get more than one element, so you have to iterate through each, and to that each function you have to specify the function that you want to execute. And again you can skip the arguments. It is not necessary or not compulsory to specify the argument. Okay, but how you can refer to the current element? So that current element can be referred by the this keyword. So it is available in JavaScript also. So console.log HTML is. So now we cannot display the index, but we can specify the HTML and text. So how you can get the current element? With a this keyword, and again you will access it in the same way using jQuery function, which is specified by $. So $this dot HTML plus /n. So it should be in a double quote or single quote. Text is plus, so $this dot text. Text and HTML both are the methods which are used to get and set the text and HTML respectively. So let us see the output. So let me refresh this. See, it shows the two h3 tags, and we already have a two h3 tags, right? So it's fun learning jQuery, and another one is I am learning jQuery 10.2. These two lines get printed, and as you can see here, look at the HTML. The HTML is along with a bold tag, and text is without bold tag. Okay, so HTML will give you the inner HTML, and text will give you only text. Okay, now let me show you the another method also. Means instead of writing a function in this way, what we can do, we can create a separate function also. Say function test, you can call it anything. For time being, I am calling it as a text. And here, what will I do? I'll just mention this part here, and to my each function, what will I do? To my each function, I'll pass this test function. That's it. Okay. So basically, to each what we have to do, to each function we have to pass any other function, or we can write a code inside that function also. So let us check it. See, we get a same output. See, both the ways are valid, but generally the concept of anonymous function is used more frequently, because these functions are very specific functions, not common to your entire script. So these functions are not created. This approach is used generally when your function is common to more than one code. In that case, it is preferred. Okay, now let us see class selector. So for class selector, we have to use dot, right? So let us select the element which has text info class. Now here two elements have text info class, this h1 tag and h3 tag. So we should get output selector, and I am learning jQuery. So what you will say here, dollar, for class selector I have to use dot, and my class name, which is text dash info. Okay, then again, if you are using class selector, there might be a possibility that same class is applied to more than one element. So definitely you will get more than one element. So for that we have to use each. So function, so here we are actually specifying the callback function. Okay, so code is going to be same again. So let us run this. See, this is our output selector, and I am learning jQuery, and the previous one is the output of our element selector. So let me comment that part so we can observe the output clearly. See, selector, and I am learning jQuery 10.2. Okay, now let us see ID selector. Now for ID selector, we have to use hash symbol before our ID. So there is one element, see, subheading. Okay, so I want to select the element which ID is what? Subheading. So let us see this. So dollar, then hash, and then after your ID. Now whenever you are using ID selector, definitely there is unique ID and you will get a single element only. So you need not to use each. So you can directly print its HTML. So let us print it and give this output to our console.log function. Okay, and let me comment this part so we can observe output. Now see, what should be our output? our output should be it's fun learning jQuery. And since I said HTML, so this B or bold tag should get printed. So let us check our output. Let me save this first. See, it's fun learning jQuery. It appeared along with a bold tag because we used a function HTML here. Now let us see the attribute tag or attribute selector. So we want to select the attribute of class, but its value will be a text danger. So let us write it. Let me put a comment here. Attribute selectors. So for that, what we have to specify? Square bracket. Okay. Then our attribute name, and I want the attribute with specific value. So I'll specify the attribute value also. Let me close this double quote. Okay. Now there might be a possibility that this attribute and this value is applied to more than one tag. So definitely I have to use each function. Okay. And let us say console.log. Let me copy this part so we can complete it very fast. Okay, done. So what should be my output? My output should be jQuery is used for DOM manipulation. So let us check it. See, we print both HTML and text also. So you got the output. jQuery is used for DOM manipulation. So for selectors, what we have to remember? Definitely you will write your code in document.ready event, and after that you will specify your required selector. If you are getting more than one element as your output, in that case you have to use each function. In case of ID selector, you always get a single output only, so a single element to be selected only, so you can use it directly. And each function accepts another function as an argument, and this situation always occur in jQuery, that one function accepts the another function, which is called as callback function. Okay, so we have to use this function. So I showed you the both the ways. Either you can specify your function separately and you pass it as a argument to another function, or what you can do, you can write that function inside that function. Okay, so as I told you, this approach is more preferred because these functions are not general, these functions are very specific. That's why this approach is used. In next video we'll saw some interesting methods of jQuery. So I hope you understand this part. Thank you.